What was it like growing up as a woman?
I love being a woman. But remember that because I worked all and went to school and worked all back east during the war years, and I married very young. But I love being a woman.
What was affected in your everyday life as being a woman?
What affected me
Yes.
was getting married was the biggest thing that affected me as a woman and being a mother.
When were you first aware that there was issues about women's rights?
I wasn't aware too much until I had to apply later on in years as an executive director for the Chamber of Commerce in Lake Oswego.
Was there resistance to you being hired?
Well, it was not a resistance as much as they just assumed that they weren't interested in hiring a woman. And the select committee got together and viewed my resume, and I had applied against 20 other guys. And that was it. But I didn't know that they had neglected to read my resume, the first one, because they just figured that the woman was, that nobody wanted to hire a woman.
Did you have any mentors?
I had mentors after. I had mentors when I was real young, but I had mentors after work. I mean, I had all the surrounding area chamber managers and executive directors from all the community, from all the cities around me, whether it's Portland, Hillsborough, Forest Grove, Oregon City, you name it. They all were there to help me through my first year as a chamber exec.
Do you think there still needs to be a greater change in attitude towards women?
No, I think that it's being accepted very highly. At that, there's been quite a change in the last 50 years, really. So I don't think there need much changes. There's always good for change.
Are you still involved with women's issues, women's rights?
Well, I'm not. I'm interested in the women's role in life, and I admire the women that work for what they're doing and not expect things. I feel that women that gain respect from the business community or their whatever organization they belong to, they have to work for it, and not just because they're a woman, but because they're a person. And I'm very proud of the progress of the women.
Was living in Lake Oswego a positive experience regarding women's rights?
Very much so. We're very fortunate living here in Lake Oswego that could show you that I was the first woman manager and executive director in the whole state. Or the nation. I don't think there was very many in the whole nation. This was in 1961 that I was hired, and at that time there were very, very few nationwide. That as far as my board of directors, we had the first president of the chamber was a woman. The first woman president ever, chamber president. And I think that we were very few women president at that time in all the chambers of the whole nation. And that's not because because of me, it's because this woman owned an insurance company, and she proved herself respected by the board of directors. And the men nominated her, not me. I have to emphasize that.
Yeah.
This woman was nominated by the men.
Do you think women's rights are still developing?
I think so. I think there's always a need for better development in both ways. You have to, I think that women have to understand the difference between a man and a woman as far as the needs and motherhood and children and liking themselves for what they are and gaining the respect. Not expecting it, but gaining it but for themselves.
Yeah.
And liking themselves for what they are.
Are you still involved in any way with?
Yes, I am. I'm very much involved in the the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also involved in Festival of the Arts. Also, I'm a member of the Lake Oswego Rotary, and I'm a Life Achievement member of the Royal Rosarians.
If you could go back in time, would you change anything?
Not really. Not really. Maybe not marry as young as I did, because I really was very young. But I was very at that time. Everyone got married young. We all married young. It was expected of us to,
Do you think social media has impacted women's rights in a positive or negative way?
I think both ways. Both. I think that social it helps. It has its place, but I really think that people have to have human contact at all times, and not depend on the iPads or texting and things like that. Everybody needs eye contact and human relationships, and that's very important in business and personal life.
Do you think the younger generation has the same passion about women's rights?
I think so. I think they do. Most women young women that I've have a marvelous way of looking at life, and they think more and they're reading more and accept more. And I think what I like about it is that but both men and women now share a lot together, and that's a very positive for this young generation. That together they share things which years ago it wasn't as problem.